Hello, I'm Dr. McClain, and today I want to share with you the top 7 foods that can trigger an autoimmune flare-up or exacerbation. So if you have an autoimmune disorder, you're probably familiar with what it is, but just briefly, it's when your own immune system attacks your own tissue. And there's some people that say there's over 100 different type of autoimmune disorders. Some people say there's over 200 different type of autoimmune disorders. So it depends on the tissue it affects, and that's where the diagnosis comes from. And some people have worse cases than others, but we know that food and diet is a direct correlation to how our body functions. And so there are certain things that can cause the symptoms to flare up and affect your body's ability to heal. So there's probably an endless list that we could go through, and it's not the same for everybody. Certain foods are going to affect other people more than others. And so it's not the food itself, it's your response to it, how your body responds to it. And it depends how damaged your body is or how much miscommunication is going on. So we're just going to go through the top ones and how you can work those to avoid those things. So number one, a big category is sugar. And it's probably an obvious one, but the challenge here is that sugar is in so many different foods. So sugar weakens the immune system. We talk about autoimmune disorders. Sugar really hammers the immune system. So that number one is going to create problems. Number two, it's inflammatory. So that contributes more to these autoimmune responses. So the challenge is that sugar is not just in cans of pop or desserts, it's in almost every processed and packaged food. It's not just the word sugar that you have to look for, it's anything that ends in OSE. Corn is the big sweetener now. We've went more away from pure sugar, went more to corn because it's much cheaper. It's subsidized, so a lot of foods have corns or high fructose corn syrup, which is even more processed. So these things can really create inflammation and create lots of issues and really weaken the immune system and cause a flare. So you gotta look for even things like salad dressings and ketchup and really any processed or packaged food. So now does it mean you have to cut sugar out the rest of your life? No, maybe not, maybe. But you might be able to cut it out for a period of time to allow your body to heal, and that might be able to add some of those things back in. But overall, we're all gonna do better if we can avoid or limit our sugar intake. Number two is kind of a surprising one, is quinoa or quinoa, depending on who you talk to. And it's kind of interesting, quinoa is a very healthy food. It's got some really healthy properties to that, but it has something in it called saponins. Saponins, I think is how you pronounce it. And it's this protective layer that when an animal eats it, it passes through the digestive system, they poop it out or defecate it on the ground, it can be absorbed into the soil and still create a plant. So it's a self-protective measure, but these saponins can really irritate our gut lining and create issues. Again, some people have no issues with it, some people really can flare it up. So again, it's not as common in a food, but it's been touted as a health food, which it is, but it can affect some people. So it's something that if you're gonna have it, you wanna try to limit it or totally eliminate it, period. Now what you may find is you can eliminate all these and then bring them in one back at a time and see how your body responds, or eliminate one at a time and see if you have improvements. But again, it's challenging because so many different things can cause these flare-ups. Now, number three you've probably heard of is gluten. And this is a big one. It's a challenging one. Just like the sugar, it's in so many different areas. People often ask, well, why is it such an issue today? Why is it more on the rise today versus 30, 40, 50 years ago? We've had gluten around for a long time. And there's various different thoughts on that. I think one is we're just starting to recognize more of these autoimmune disorders and these leaky gut issues. So we didn't really recognize them as much before. But then you've got all the other things that are in the mix here. So you've got gluten that maybe wasn't an issue for a problem in the past, but now they get exposed to toxins and even Wi-Fi signals, all these different things that have damaged their gut, and then gluten really just pushes them over the edge. So it's not just the gluten itself, it's all these other factors, but also we know that we've changed gluten. They say you're not eating the same gluten that your parents were eating 30, 40, 50 years ago. So again, it's harder for our body to recognize. So I always use the example of, I speak some broken Spanish, but if I'm trying to speak to somebody that doesn't speak any English, and I'm trying to communicate some Spanish to them, and they're trying to speak some English to me, our communication's not very good. It's hard to get a signal across, and there may be some miscommunications or maybe some errors. Well, in our body, we take something that's 100% natural, like a raw fruit or vegetable that's not been tampered with at all, not genetically modified, no pesticides, and we put it into our body knows exactly what to do with it. Now, the more you process it, the more chemicals you add to it, the more that you process and package it, add other things to it, it makes it more difficult for our body to recognize. Just like that communication, that language, and it's more challenging for our body to break down. It's an extra stress on the body. So that's one way to look at gluten, why it's more of an issue maybe today than it was years ago. But again, this is a big one. We could all benefit from minimizing our exposure to it. I don't seem to have any reaction to it, but I know I'd be healthier if I totally eliminated it. Dairy, this is a big one too. Now, this is an interesting thing. A lot of times people with leaky gut or autoimmune disorders don't have, I keep mentioning leaky gut just so you know, that seems to be the one variable with autoimmune disorders. Is almost always people have some type of a GI involvement or have leaky gut. So that's why I keep bringing that up. But dairy, for somebody that's got leaky gut or an autoimmune disorder, if it's a pure form of dairy, meaning it's untampered with, it's milk right from the cow, it's not pasteurized or homogenized, or it's raw cheese, a lot of people report that they don't have any GI issues with those type of foods. Now, depending on what state you're in, sometimes you can get these things, or country, sometimes you can't get those things. But again, dairy is, especially the processed dairy, can really be harder on the gut. So that's a good one to avoid as well. Alcohol, this is a big one. And, people always talk about like red wine, for example, it's got resveratrol. Isn't that healthy for you? Well, also it's got, high levels of acidity. So there's a give and take there. You have to look at the net benefit. And I think you could look at it both ways. Now, I'm not a big drinker, but I do like a good glass of wine or a nice beer in the summer. I'm not a real big hard alcohol drinker. Once in a while, I'll have a mixed drink, but not very often. But I know in general, when I drink less alcohol, I feel better. So to me, that's a good indicator of that it's probably not as good for you. But the one thing we do know is that this forms of alcohol can increase that junction, the gap junction in our gut that can lead to leaky gut. So in general, again, it's something that you can, if you can avoid it, you're better. Again, it's something you could test. Drink some, see how you respond, leave it out for a little while. But to me, the net benefit, you can get things like resveratrol, you can get supplements and things like that. So if you're just looking for the health benefits, there's other ways to get that. Grains, this is another huge issue because grains, again, are in so many different things. And a lot of people don't understand that grains, if not 100%, the vast majority of grains, as soon as they hit your bloodstream, they're converted into sugar. So they raise our blood sugar. So there's different levels of grains. There's something called the glycemic index, and that is essentially how quickly or slowly it spikes our blood sugar. We would like our blood sugars to go up slowly. So that means when you eat food, it gets converted into sugar in our body so that we can utilize it. And the slower we can have that rise, the easier it is for our body to deal with it. So if we get a big spike in a blood sugar, like we take a glass of orange juice that's very high in sugar, it spikes our blood sugar very quickly. Insulin has to rush in and drop that blood sugar down. Then you get a drop of blood sugar. It's much more challenging to our body. So a lot of these grains, especially white grains, white rice, white bread, those are really, really challenging. So if you're gonna have grains, you wanna look for more of a pure form and a lower form like a wheat. A piece of wheat bread is gonna be better than a piece of white bread. Bread in general, you should try to avoid. But grains seem to really exacerbate those issues as well. All right, so overall, I think I said 7. That was 6 foods. So 6 are your top foods. But overall, again, just think about that in terms of healing. The lower you can drop the load, because some people hear this and like, well, I'd have to give up everything. I've got to just cut everything out, everything that's good out of my diet. And so think about not what you're going to give up, but what you're going to get. If you could heal your body, think of the benefits you're going to get from that long term. And some of these foods, again, you might be able to eliminate those short term to get your body to heal on a higher level. And then you might be able to add some of those things back in, at least short term, here and there, versus having to totally limit those the rest of your life. So just think about healing, anything you can do to lower the load on your body. If you have questions, please push them here. I'll do my best to answer those for you. And also, please subscribe to my page if you want more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next video.